The stars hung silent in the void as the Krell Dominion fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 2,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever put into space, arranged themselves in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly metal that seemed to drink in the starlight and reflect it back in shades of deep purple and black. Fleet Commander Zarkoth stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Conquest, his four eyes scanning the tactical displays with practiced ease. His scales rippled with satisfaction as the sensor data populated across the screens. This would be his 48th conquest and by far the easiest. The primitive world ahead had barely mastered fusion power. Their vessels still used chemical propulsion for the most part. They had no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no quantum communications. The Krell had been expanding their empire for 300 cycles, absorbing species after species into their dominion. Most surrendered after the first demonstration of power. The few that resisted were crushed within days. The pattern never changed. Show overwhelming force, demand submission, and the primitives always chose survival over pride. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council monitored the encounter from their observation stations. This was standard protocol when a new species faced first contact through military action. The Council existed to maintain order among the stars, but their laws were clear. They would not intervene in conquest unless it violated specific treaties. They would simply watch, record, and later integrate whoever survived into the galactic community. Ambassador Tahara of the Crystalline Consortium adjusted her sensory array to better observe the human homeworld. She felt a twinge of what her species called regret. The humans seemed so vibrant in their radio transmissions, so full of chaotic creativity, but they had been unlucky enough to sit along the Krell expansion route. Such was the way of the cosmos. Zarkoth opened a communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies the humans used. His translator matrix rendered his words into the dominant human languages simultaneously. The message was simple and had been delivered to dozens of species before. Primitive beings of the third planet, you have been chosen for integration into the Krell Dominion. Surrender your military assets immediately. Prepare to receive our administrators. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your population centers. You have one of your hours to comply. The response from Earth took only minutes. It came not from scattered governments, as Zarkoth had expected, but from a unified command structure that identified itself as the United Earth Defense Force. The human who appeared on his screen wore a plain uniform with minimal decoration. She had dark skin, short gray hair, and eyes that reminded Zarkoth uncomfortably of his own species during a hunt. I am Admiral Chen Shi of the United Earth Defense Force. Your attack is unprovoked and illegal under any reasonable definition. Withdraw from our system immediately or face the consequences. Zarkoth felt his mandibles click in amusement. Consequences. These primitives actually thought they could threaten him. He decided to provide the standard demonstration. 3 of their orbital stations hung in geosynchronous orbit above their planet. Military installations, his sensors indicated, but also home to thousands of their civilians. You misunderstand your position, Zarkoth replied. Allow me to clarify, he gave the order. 3 Krell destroyers fired precision plasma bursts. The human stations exploded in silent flowers of fire and metal. 17,000 humans died in those few seconds, though Zarkoth did not know the exact number. He had not bothered to count. On the Council observation stations, several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. The demonstration was within standard parameters, but something about the human's expression before the screen went dark had been unsettling. She had not shown fear. She had shown something else entirely. Earth's military assets began moving. Zarkoth watched with professional interest as hundreds of vessels scrambled from various orbital positions and ground installations. They were a mess of different designs, clearly built by competing nations before this unified command had been established. Some used primitive nuclear pulse propulsion. Others had early fusion drives that Zarkoth's engineers would have been embarrassed to install on a cargo shuttle. The human fleet formed up between Earth and the Krell Armada. Zarkoth counted approximately 400 combat-capable vessels. Against his 2,000, it was not even a contest. They are brave, at least, his tactical officer observed. Bravery without wisdom is just another word for suicide, Zarkoth replied. He opened a channel to his fleet. All vessels advance. Disable their ships but avoid total destruction. We will need them as examples when we pacify the surface. The Krell fleet began its approach, moving in perfect formation. Standard doctrine called for a steady advance, overwhelming the enemy with superior firepower while minimizing damage to useful infrastructure. The humans would see the futility of resistance and surrender. They always did, but the human ships did not retreat. They accelerated toward the Krell fleet. Zarkoth felt his scales ripple with confusion. This was unusual. Most species at least attempted a defensive posture, but the humans were charging directly at his formation. Perhaps they truly did not understand the gap in capability. The human vessels came within weapons range, and Zarkoth expected them to open fire with their primitive kinetic weapons. Instead, the forward ships began broadcasting a signal on all frequencies. A single word in their dominant language repeated over and over: swarm, swarm, swarm. The front line of human vessels exploded. Not from Krell weapons fire. They detonated themselves all at once in a carefully coordinated sequence. The explosions were nuclear in nature, but they were not aimed at the Krell fleet. Instead, they created massive clouds of debris, shrapnel, and shattered metal, traveling outward at tremendous velocity. Zarkoth's tactical officer shrieked a warning, but it was already too late. The Krell shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb plasma fire, were nearly useless against physical projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The debris field slammed into the forward elements of his fleet like a hammer striking crystal. 60 ships disappeared from his tactical display in the first 10 seconds. Hundreds more showed critical damage. The beautiful formation dissolved into chaos as captains tried to maneuver away from the expanding field of shrapnel. And behind that field, protected by the very destruction they had created, came the rest of the human fleet. These ships were different from the ones that had sacrificed themselves. They were uglier, more brutal in design. Where Krell vessels were elegant curves and perfect angles, these human warships were boxes and cylinders covered in armor plating and weapon ports. The first volley from the human fleet was not energy weapons. Zarkoth watched in disbelief as simple metal rods, accelerated to hypervelocity by magnetic rails, punched through Krell shields like they were not even there. The rods did not explode. They did not need to. The kinetic energy alone was devastating. Then came the missiles. Thousands of them, each one making evasive maneuvers that suggested a level of artificial intelligence the Krell reserved for their most advanced systems. His point defense systems tried to engage, but the missiles were too many, too fast, too smart. The human fleet tore into his formation with savage efficiency. They fought like nothing Zarkoth had ever encountered. When their ships took damage, they did not retreat. They kept fighting until they were literally torn apart. He watched one human destroyer lose its entire forward section and still managed to ram a Krell cruiser, detonating its fusion core at the moment of impact. Within 30 minutes, Zarkoth had lost 300 ships. The humans had lost perhaps 100, but they showed no signs of stopping. On the Council observation stations, Ambassador Tahara watched in growing horror as the species she had pitied revealed what they truly were. Not primitives, not victims, predators. The battle had been raging for 6 hours when Zarkoth finally understood the true nature of his mistake. The humans were not fighting to win in any conventional sense. They were fighting to kill. Every tactic, every maneuver, every weapon they deployed had a single purpose: maximum destruction of enemy forces regardless of cost to themselves. His fleet had superior numbers, superior technology, and superior firepower. None of it mattered. The humans had something the Krell had not encountered in their 300 cycles of conquest. They had experience. While the Krell had been peacefully expanding against species that surrendered quickly, humanity had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing other humans. They had refined warfare into a science, explored every possible way to destroy their own kind, and learned lessons written in the blood of billions. Now they were applying all of that accumulated knowledge to an enemy from the stars. Admiral Chen Shi watched the tactical display from the bridge of the Ued's Indomitable, humanity's largest warship. The ship had been built in secret over the past 20 years, constructed in the darkness beyond Neptune where no casual observer would notice. It had been part of a program started by people who believed that contact with alien life would not be peaceful. Those people had been right. "Status report," Chen ordered, her voice calm, despite the chaos displayed on the screens around her. "We have lost 93 vessels. her tactical officer reported. Enemy losses are estimated at 412 confirmed destroyed, 278 disabled or crippled. They are attempting to retreat, but our mine network is preventing organized withdrawal. Chen nodded. The mines had been deployed 6 months ago by satellites that the Krell had dismissed as primitive research equipment. Each mine was a simple device, really. A block of metal studded with sensors and a small maneuvering thruster. When something large moved past, the mine would accelerate toward it and detonate. Not sophisticated, but effective. The Krell had walked into a killing field without even knowing it existed. Deploy the hunters, Chen ordered. Across human space, smaller vessels began launching. These were not warships in the traditional sense. They were converted freighters, mining ships, even luxury yachts that had been hastily militarized. Each one carried a skeleton crew and a payload of weapons that would have horrified the Galactic Council if they had known humans possessed them. Nuclear-shaped charges designed to punch through armor. Antimatter warheads that violated 3 separate galactic treaties. Chemical weapons that could eat through Krell hull plating like acid. Biological agents engineered specifically to target Krell physiology, based on genetic samples taken from diplomatic contacts years before. The humans had prepared for this war without knowing when it would come. They had simply assumed it would come eventually. On the Council observation station, Ambassador Tahara could not look away from the displays. The other Council members sat in stunned silence as they watched the humans systematically destroy a fleet that should have been invincible to them. They fight without honor, Ambassador Krellnoth of the Avian Collective observed. His feathers were ruffled in distress. They sacrifice their own vessels like they mean nothing. They fight to win, Tahara corrected quietly. There is a difference. Another counselor, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix, pulsed with confusion. But their technology is inferior. How are they winning? Tahara had been studying human history since they had been discovered by galactic survey teams 50 cycles ago. She had read their literature, watched their entertainment, and analyzed their military records. She understood what the others did not. They have been at war with themselves for their entire existence, she explained. While we evolved past physical conflict millions of years ago, they continued to refine it. Every weapon they are using is based on principles they developed to kill each other. They are not more advanced than the Krell. They are more experienced at violence. The display showed a human destroyer ramming a Krell battlecruiser at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a flash of fusion fire. Madness, Krellnoth whispered. Strategy, Tahara replied. That destroyer was already crippled. The captain chose to make their death count. Watch! The explosion had thrown debris into the path of 3 more Krell vessels, damaging their engines. Human missile cruisers immediately targeted the disabled ships, overwhelming their defenses with sheer numbers of projectiles. Back in the Sol system, Zarkoth made a decision he had never made before in his career. He opened a priority channel to the Galactic Council. This is Fleet Commander Zarkoth of the Krell Dominion. I am requesting immediate intervention under Article 7 of the Galactic Charter. The humans are employing weapons of mass destruction and fighting with total disregard for their own survival. They represent a threat to civilized space. The response from the Council came within minutes, but it was not what Zarkoth wanted to hear. Fleet Commander, your request is denied. The humans are defending their homeworld against unprovoked aggression. Article 7 does not apply. We will continue to observe. Zarkoth felt something he had not experienced since his youth. Fear. He ordered a full retreat, abandoning the disabled vessels and fleeing at maximum speed. The humans pursued for exactly 10 light minutes before breaking off. They did not chase the retreating fleet out of the system. They simply stopped and let them go. This confused Zarkoth until he realized the truth. The humans had won. They had driven off an invasion force 20 times their size. Now they were letting survivors escape to spread the word of what had happened here. The message was clear. Do not come to Earth. Admiral Chen watched the Krell fleet flee on her screens. Around her, the bridge crew was silent. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Nearly 100 ships destroyed, thousands of crew dead, and the 3 orbital stations that had been destroyed at the start of the battle. 17,000 civilians who would never see another sunrise. Communications, Chen said quietly. Get me a channel to the Galactic Council. Wideband, maximum power. I want every species in this region to hear this. The communications officer worked for a moment, then nodded. "You are broadcasting, Admiral." Chen stood, straightening her uniform. She looked directly into the camera, knowing that beings across dozens of star systems would see this message. "I am Admiral Chen Shi of the United Earth Defense Force. 6 hours ago, the Krell Dominion attacked our homeworld without warning or provocation. They destroyed 3 civilian stations, killing 17,000 people, men, women, and children who were guilty of nothing except being human." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "The Galactic Council watched this happen. You have protocols and procedures that prevented you from acting. You observed while our people died. I want you to understand something very clearly. Humanity does not have protocols for watching genocide. We have protocols for preventing it and for avenging it." Behind her, the tactical display showed the wreckage of the Krell fleet scattered across the solar system, hundreds of ships torn apart by human weapons. The Krell came here believing we were primitive and helpless. They learned differently. We have driven them from our system, but we are not satisfied. Justice demands more than victory. It demands consequences. Chen leaned forward, her eyes hard. "We are coming for the Krell Dominion, not for conquest, not for territory, for justice. Every being in this galaxy should understand that when you attack Earth, when you kill our people, we do not forgive, and we do not forget. We will find you, we will defeat you, and we will make sure you never threaten anyone again." She gestured, and the display behind her changed. It now showed schematics of Krell vessels, technical readouts, and engineering analysis. "In the wreckage of your fleet, we have found your technology, your faster-than-light drives, your energy weapons, your shields and sensors. We are studying them now. We are learning, and we are improving them." The image changed again, showing human engineers already at work on salvaged Krell equipment. "You should have left us alone. You should have chosen peace. But you chose violence, and now you will learn what humans do to those who bring war to our home." Chen cut the transmission and sat back down in her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew remained silent, processing what had just happened. The tactical officer finally spoke. "Admiral, we just declared war on a galactic power." Chen nodded slowly. "Yes, we did, and we are going to win." Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stood in the massive hangar bay that had been carved into the dark side of the moon. Around her, hundreds of human engineers and scientists swarmed over the wreckage of Krell vessels like ants dissecting much larger prey. She held a tablet that displayed technical schematics being updated in real time, as teams discovered how alien systems actually worked. It had been 3 weeks since the battle. 3 weeks since humanity had driven off the Krell invasion. In that short time, the entire focus of human civilization had shifted. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every manufacturing facility had been redirected toward a single goal: understanding and duplicating alien technology. The approach would have horrified galactic scientists. Humanity did not try to understand the underlying principles or elegant theories behind Krell engineering. They simply tore the systems apart, figured out what each component did, and rebuilt them in ways that made sense to human minds. It was crude, inefficient, and astonishingly effective. "We have the FTL drive working," announced Dr. James Chen, no relation to Admiral Chen, as he climbed down from a partially intact Krell destroyer. His face was streaked with grease and his eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he was grinning. "It is not pretty, and it probably violates several laws of physics we have not discovered yet, but it works." Sarah felt her heart race. Faster than light travel, the key to reaching the Krell before they could rebuild their forces. "How fast?" she asked. "We manage 0.7 light-years per hour in the test drone," James replied. "The Krell version is more efficient, but we cannot figure out how they stabilize the quantum field without another 6 months of research. So we just added more power, lots more power." That was becoming the standard human approach to alien technology. When elegant solutions were too complex or time-consuming to understand, humans just applied more energy, more redundancy, or more brute force. It should not have worked, but somehow it did. Across the hangar, another team was working on Krell energy weapons. The plasma cannons were beautiful pieces of engineering that channeled superheated matter through magnetic fields with incredible precision. The human version looked like someone had strapped a fusion reactor to a railgun and hoped for the best. It was 3 times larger, used twice the power, and had half the range. It also hit twice as hard. "We are ready for the first combat test," Admiral Chen announced as she entered the hangar. She had not slept much either. None of them had. We have fitted the UED's Vengeance with salvaged and reverse-engineered technology. She will depart for Krell space in 6 hours. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. So soon. They were really going to take the fight to the Krell homeworlds. Just one ship? She asked. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. For now. We need to send a message before we send a fleet. The Vengeance was not the largest human warship, but she was the first to be fitted with FTL capability. She carried a crew of 200 volunteers who all understood they might not be coming back. Her hull was covered in salvaged Krell armor plating. Her weapons were a mixture of human and alien design, and her reactor output was sufficient to power a small city. Captain Marcus Torres stood on the bridge as his ship made the jump to faster-than-light speed for the first time. The sensation was indescribable, like being stretched across infinite distance while simultaneously compressed to a single point. Then it was over, and they were 8 light-years from Earth in the outer reaches of Krell space. All systems nominal, his tactical officer reported. We survived the jump. Torres allowed himself a small smile. Excellent. Navigation. Set course for the nearest Krell military installation. Communications. Prepare the message package. The message was simple. Footage of Earth's devastation. The 3 orbital stations exploding. Bodies floating in space. Children who would never grow up. Then the demands. Complete surrender of all Krell military assets. War crime tribunals for Fleet Commander Zarkoth and his senior officers. And reparations for the families of those killed. The Krell response came within hours. A fleet of 60 warships surrounded the Vengeance, weapons armed and shields at maximum. Surrender immediately or be destroyed, the Krell commander broadcast. You are alone and outnumbered, Torres looked at his crew. They looked back at him with determination. They had all lost someone in the attack on Earth. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing the odds. Weapons free, Torres ordered. Show them what humans do to murderers. The Vengeance opened fire with everything she had. Human railguns sent tungsten rods through Krell shields. Salvaged plasma cannons tore through armor. Missiles with human-designed AI systems dodged point defense with inhuman precision. And then Torres activated the weapon that Earth's engineers had been most proud of. The Krell had banned artificial intelligence in weapon systems 10 million years ago, after a war that nearly destroyed the galaxy. The prohibition was absolute, written into every treaty and law. Humans had no such restrictions because humans had never signed those treaties. The Vengeance released 3,000 autonomous drones, each one equipped with basic AI, a small fusion reactor, and a single purpose: destroy Krell ships by any means necessary. The drones learned from each engagement, shared information instantaneously, and adapted their tactics faster than organic minds could counter. The Krell fleet tried to shoot them down, but for every drone destroyed, 2 more adjusted their approach. They found weak points in shields, exploited gaps in point defense, and coordinated attacks with ruthless efficiency. Within 30 minutes, 15 Krell warships were crippled or destroyed. The rest scattered, fleeing in different directions. Torres broadcast another message, this one directed at all Krell channels. This is just one ship, one small demonstration of what humanity can do. We have your technology now. We have improved it. And we are coming for all of you. Surrender now or face the consequences. He did not wait for a response. The Vengeance jumped back to FTL, leaving behind wreckage and terrified survivors who would spread the word of what they had witnessed. In the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency session had been going for 3 days straight. Representatives from dozens of species argued about what to do about the human problem. They are using weapons we banned millions of years ago, Ambassador Krellnoth protested. Artificial intelligence in military systems is forbidden. They never agreed to that ban, Tahara pointed out calmly. They were not part of the galactic community when those laws were made. You cannot hold them accountable to agreements they never signed. Then we must force them to comply, another counselor insisted. We must intervene before they destabilize the entire region. With what forces? Tahara asked. Who among you is willing to face human weapons? They destroyed a Krell armada with inferior technology. Now they have our technology. Who wants to test themselves against that combination? The chamber fell silent. Into that silence came a transmission from Earth. Sarah Okonkwo appeared on the central display, having been appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the galactic community. Honored members of the Galactic Council, she began. her voice polite but firm. "I understand you have concerns about humanity's actions. Allow me to address them." She stood calmly despite knowing she was addressing beings that had existed for millions of years. "You watched the Krell attack our homeworld. You had the power to prevent it and chose not to. Your protocols and procedures are very important to you, I am sure. But they meant nothing to the 17,000 humans who died while you watched." Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. "Now you are concerned that we are using weapons you banned long ago. You are worried that we are too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous. I have a question for you. Where was this concern when the Krell were destroying our stations? Where was this moral outrage when our children were dying?" She leaned forward. "Humanity does not recognize your authority because you have shown us that your authority means nothing when actual violence occurs. You are observers, not protectors, so we will protect ourselves. And if that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you should have thought of that before you watched us burn." Sarah ended the transmission, leaving the council in stunned silence. 8 months after the failed invasion of Earth, the Krell Dominion was burning. Not with nuclear fire or plasma weapons, but with something far more insidious. Human technology had evolved in those 8 months with terrifying speed. And nowhere was that more apparent than in the swarms of autonomous drones that now filled Krell space. Fleet Commander Zarkoth watched from his command station on the Krell homeworld as another defense platform fell silent. The drones had cut through its shields, disabled its weapons, and carved it into scrap metal in less than 10 minutes. No lives lost on either side because the platform had been evacuated hours before when the swarm first appeared. That was the nightmare of fighting the humans. They did not need to risk soldiers anymore. Their machines did the dying for them, and machines did not feel fear or hesitation. "How many platforms have we lost?" he asked his tactical officer. 73 in this sector alone," came the reply. "The swarms are adapting to our countermeasures faster than we can deploy them. Every defense we create, they learn to overcome within hours." Zarkoth had spent the past months studying human military history, trying to understand the enemy that had destroyed his fleet. What he learned had kept him awake at night. Humans had been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. They had invented thousands of ways to kill each other, refined those methods through countless conflicts, and documented every lesson learned in blood. The galaxy had evolved beyond such barbarism millions of years ago. Conflicts were resolved through diplomacy, economic pressure, or limited warfare with strict rules of engagement. The Krell Dominion itself had conquered dozens of species, but always with minimal casualties and clear terms of surrender. Humans did not fight that way. They studied their enemy, identified weaknesses, and exploited them without mercy. They did not accept surrender until their demands were completely met. And they never forgot an injury. On Earth, in a secure bunker beneath the Himalayas, Admiral Chen reviewed casualty reports with growing satisfaction. The autonomous drones were performing beyond expectations. Human losses in the past 8 months of warfare had been minimal. 12 ships destroyed, mostly in the early engagements before the drone swarms had been perfected. Fewer than 3,000 military casualties. The Krell, meanwhile, had lost hundreds of installations, thousands of ships, and were evacuating civilian populations from border worlds to avoid the advancing human forces. "We are winning," her tactical officer observed. "The Krell are requesting peace talks." Chen shook her head. "They are requesting terms of surrender. There is a difference. And we are not finished yet." She pulled up a list of names on her screen. Every human who had died when the Krell destroyed those 3 orbital stations. 17,000 names. Men, women, children, scientists, engineers, families who had been living and working in space. "We told them the price," Chen said quietly. "Complete surrender of military assets. War crime tribunals, reparations, they refused. So we continue." Across Krell space, human ships appeared at industrial centers, mining facilities, and shipyards. They did not bombard civilian populations or target cities. Instead, they systematically dismantled the Krell's ability to wage war. Factories that produced weapons were reduced to rubble. Shipyards capable of building warships were carved into scrap. Mining operations that extracted the rare elements needed for advanced technology were collapsed and sealed. The humans were not conquering the Krell. They were neutering them. In the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency sessions had become routine. Ambassador Tahara listened as her colleagues debated intervention for the 100th time. The humans must be stopped, Ambassador Krelnoth insisted. They are dismantling an entire civilization. They are dismantling a military threat, Tahara corrected. They are not harming civilians. They are not occupying territory. They are removing the Krell's ability to attack other species. It is still aggression. It is justice, Sarah Okonkwo said as she entered the chamber. The human ambassador had been invited to address the council directly. The Krell attacked our homeworld without provocation. They killed 17,000 of our people. We warned them of the consequences. They ignored that warning. Now they are facing those consequences. She walked to the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings far older and more powerful than any human. You want to know what makes humanity different? Sarah asked. It is not our technology or our weapons. It is our memory. We do not forget. When someone hurts us, when someone kills our children, we remember, and we make sure it never happens again. By destroying an entire species, Krelnoth demanded. By making sure they can never threaten anyone else, Sarah replied calmly. The Krell Dominion has conquered 47 species. How many people died in those conquests? How many civilizations were subjugated? Where was your outrage then? The chamber fell silent. You are right to be afraid of us, Sarah continued, because we are showing you something you have not seen in millions of years. We are showing you what justice looks like when it is backed by force. The Krell hurt us and we are making them pay, but we are not killing civilians. We are not destroying their culture. We are taking away their ability to hurt others. She turned slowly, making eye contact with as many counselors as possible. And here is what should really terrify you. We are not doing this out of anger or revenge. We are doing this because it is right. Because someone has to stop species like the Krell from attacking weaker civilizations while you sit here and debate protocols. On the Krell homeworld, Zarkoth received the latest reports with growing despair. The humans had destroyed his species' ability to wage war. The shipyards were gone. The weapons factories were rubble. The military infrastructure that had taken 300 cycles to build had been systematically dismantled in less than a year, and now the humans were broadcasting a new message. This one came from Sarah Okonkwo, speaking not just to the Krell but to the entire galaxy. The Krell Dominion's military capacity has been neutralized. We are prepared to discuss terms of peace, but those terms are non-negotiable. Fleet Commander Zarkoth and every officer involved in the attack on Earth will surrender themselves for trial. The Krell will pay reparations to the families of those they killed, and the Krell will accept monitoring of their military rebuilding to ensure they never again threaten peaceful species. Zarkoth felt his scales ripple with humiliation, but he also felt something else: relief. The humans could have destroyed his entire species. They had the weapons, the technology, and the will to do so. Instead, they were offering terms. Harsh terms, but terms nonetheless. He opened a channel to Earth. I am Fleet Commander Zarkoth of the Krell Dominion. I accept responsibility for the attack on your homeworld. I am prepared to surrender myself for trial if it will bring peace. The response came from Admiral Chen herself. Your surrender is accepted. A human ship will arrive at your location within 1 day to take you into custody. You will be treated according to the rules of war and given a fair trial. If you are found guilty, you will face punishment. But you will be alive and your species will survive. Zarkoth closed his eyes. He had started this war believing humans were primitive and weak. He had learned the truth too late. Humans were neither primitive nor weak. They were the most dangerous species in the galaxy because they combined advanced intelligence with an absolute refusal to forgive unprovoked violence. In the council chambers, Ambassador Tahara watched as the human ambassador departed after delivering her ultimatum. The other counselors were arguing about sanctions, about intervention, about maintaining galactic order. But Tahara understood what they did not. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had shown that the Council's authority meant nothing without the will to enforce it. They had demonstrated that justice backed by force was more effective than laws backed by nothing. The age of the Council's absolute authority was over. A new era had begun and humanity stood at its center, not because they wanted power, but because they had proven they would use power to protect the innocent and punish the guilty. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it should have learned millions of years ago. Evil prospers when good people do nothing. Humanity had decided they would never do nothing again. 50 years after the Krell assault on Earth, the galaxy looked very different. The change had not come through conquest or political maneuvering. but through something far simpler. Humanity had appointed itself the guardian of those who could not defend themselves, and no force in known space had been able to stop them. Captain Maria Santos sat on the bridge of the UED Sentinel, monitoring a border dispute between two minor species near the Orion Arm. The conflict had been brewing for months, with both sides massing fleets and making increasingly aggressive threats. The Galactic Council had scheduled mediation sessions, formed committees, and drafted proposals. None of it had stopped the march toward war, so humanity had sent a ship. Both fleets are moving into firing positions, her tactical officer reported. They are ignoring Council orders to stand down. Maria nodded calmly. Standard protocol. Open a channel to both sides. Her face appeared on the communication screens of both fleets. She looked tired because she was. The Sentinel had been on patrol for 8 months, responding to conflicts across 3 sectors. But her eyes were steady and her voice was firm. This is Captain Santos of the United Earth Defense Force. You are both preparing to start a war that will kill thousands of your people. I am ordering you to stand down immediately and return to your respective territories. The response from one fleet commander was predictable. This is not your concern, human. The Council will handle this dispute. The Council has been handling this dispute for 6 months, Maria replied. Meanwhile, your civilians live in fear. Your economies are collapsing under military spending. Your young people are being drafted to die in a war that benefits no one. So I am making it my concern. The other fleet commander cut in. You have no authority here. This is between our species. Maria smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. You are correct. I have no authority. But I have this ship, and she carries enough firepower to disable both your fleets in approximately 15 minutes. So here's what will happen. You will both stand down. You will both return home, and representatives from both your species will meet on neutral ground to negotiate a peaceful solution. If you refuse, I will disable your ships and then we will negotiate while you are floating helpless in space. There was a long silence. Both fleet commanders knew the human reputation. Over the past 50 years, humanity had intervened in dozens of conflicts. They never took sides. They never claimed territory. They simply stopped the fighting and forced negotiation. And they had never failed. Who gave you the right to threaten us? One commander finally asked. Maria's expression softened slightly. 17,000 dead humans gave us the right. They died while the galaxy watched and did nothing. We decided that day that we would never watch again. We would never stand by while the strong attacked the weak, so we enforce peace, not because we want power or territory, but because someone has to. Both fleets began powering down their weapons and withdrawing to safe distances. Another war prevented. Another crisis solved through the simple application of overwhelming force, coupled with genuine desire for peace. On Earth, now the center of humanity's far-flung civilization, Sarah Okonkwo sat in her office reviewing reports from across human space. She was older now, her hair completely white, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She had served as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 5 decades, navigating the complex politics of species that had existed for millions of years. Her assistant entered, carrying a data pad. The Council has requested another meeting. They want to discuss formalizing humanity's role as peacekeepers. Sarah shook her head. Same answer as always. We do not need their authorization and we will not accept their restrictions. They are offering resources, support, even a seat on the Council itself. In exchange for what? Following their protocols? Waiting for committee approvals before stopping genocide? No thank you. It had been the same conversation for 50 years. The Council wanted to bring humanity into the fold, to make them part of the established order. Humanity refused. They had learned their lesson well. Official authority meant nothing without the will to use it. Better to remain independent and effective than official and useless. There was a chime from her communication console. Sarah activated it to see Admiral Chen, now in her 90s but still sharp and commanding, appearing on the screen. We have a situation, Chen said without preamble. A species called the Zakari are preparing to invade 3 neighboring systems. The Council has been aware of the buildup for months but has not acted. Sarah felt a familiar anger stir. How long until they attack? Intelligence suggests 2 weeks at most. Send the fleet. Stop them before they start, Chen nodded. Already en route. But Sarah, this is going to cause problems. The Zakari are a Council member species. They have voting rights and diplomatic immunity. I do not care, Sarah replied flatly. They do not get to start a war just because they have friends in high places. Stop them. 3 days later, a human fleet of 50 ships appeared in Jakari space. They did not attack. They did not make threats. They simply positioned themselves between the Jakari Armada and their intended targets. Admiral James Reeves, grandson of one of the engineers who had first reverse-engineered Krell technology, broadcast a simple message. This is Admiral Reeves of the United Earth Defense Force. The galaxy knows what you are planning. We are here to prevent it. Stand down your forces or we will disable them. You have 2 hours to comply. The Jakari response was outrage. They appealed to the Council, demanding human withdrawal. They claimed violation of their sovereignty. They threatened retaliation. Humanity did not move. When the 2 hours expired, the human fleet activated their weapons. Precision strikes disabled the Jakari fleet's FTL drives, weapon systems, and communication arrays. Within 30 minutes, an armada of 5,000 ships was reduced to floating scrap that could do nothing but send distress signals. Not a single Jakari died. Every strike had been calculated to disable rather than destroy. But the message was clear. Humanity would not allow aggression regardless of who the aggressor was. In the council chambers, the reaction was predictable chaos. The Jakari representative demanded action against humanity. Other species, particularly those who would have been the Jakari's victims, quietly thanked the humans. The council was split, paralyzed by internal politics. Ambassador Tahara, now the council's longest-serving member, listened to the arguments with a sense of inevitability. She had watched humanity change the galaxy over 5 decades. She had seen them evolve from a primitive species to the most powerful force in known space, not through conquest or subjugation, but through simple determination to protect the weak. When the arguing finally paused, Tahara spoke. I have served on this council for longer than some of your species have existed. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched countless conflicts and negotiated thousands of treaties, and in all that time I have learned one absolute truth. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Power without will is meaningless. We have power. We have laws and treaties and protocols, but we lack the will to enforce them when it truly matters. Humanity has both power and will. That is why they have become the galaxy's guardians, not because they wanted the role, but because we failed to fill it ourselves. The Jakari representative began to protest, but Tahara continued. The humans disabled your fleet without killing anyone. They prevented a war that would have claimed millions of lives. And you are angry about your wounded pride. This is why humanity does not answer to us, because we prioritize procedure over protection. Sarah Okonkwo appeared on the central display, having been monitoring the session. Ambassador Tahara is correct, Sarah said. Humanity does not seek your approval or authorization. We do what is right because it is right. The Jakari were preparing to invade 3 systems. We stopped them. If you want to debate the legality of our actions, feel free. But those 3 civilizations will survive because we acted while you talked. She leaned forward, her aged face serious. 50 years ago, the Krell attacked Earth while you watched. 17,000 of my people died while you followed protocol. We promised that day that we would never watch again. We have kept that promise. We have stopped 17 wars, prevented 4 genocides, and protected dozens of species who could not protect themselves. And we have done it without asking permission or accepting restrictions. Another counselor spoke up. But who gives you the right? Sarah's response was immediate. The same thing that gave the Krell the right to attack us. Nothing. But we choose to use our power to protect rather than conquer. If you do not like that, you are welcome to stop us. But ask yourself first, who will protect the weak if we do not? Who will stand between the aggressor and the victim? Will you? The chamber fell silent because everyone knew the answer. The council would debate, form committees, draft proposals, and follow protocols while people died. Humanity would simply act.